This is the Just Right Snowboard channel. I'm Lars Horstman, and after my episodes on stances and a couple little carving tips, I've been repeatedly asked to talk about binding forward lean, that handy little adjustment option here on your Highbacks. So that's exactly what we're going to take a look at today. Forward lean adjustment is a feature that you find on most Highbacks out there that gives you control over your heel edge response by simply changing the angle or the forward lean of your Highback through a simple adjustment in small increments of this little sliding block on the Highback. So if you want to get onto your toe edge, you have that big ankle strap to lean into, and that gets pressure onto your toes. For your heel edge, you need your Highback. You push into the Highback in order for you to get onto your heel edge. So the steeper the forward lean, the higher this angle, the quicker and more powerfully you can put pressure onto your heel edge. Increasing the forward lean on your Highbacks will force you into a more active, more ready riding position with your ankles more flexed and your knees more bent. And as much as that is generally a good or the right position to be in, it can be a little bit much. So two scenarios when you notice it's too much would be that although your knees are bent and your ankles are flexed, the top of the Highback is actually digging into your calves because you've simply cranked it up too much. The other scenario when you notice it's too much is when any kind of relaxing or straightening out on your board results in a heel turn. So your board is basically overly responsive. And of course, if you want that kind of race car-like feel on your board, then there's nothing wrong with it. But otherwise, you might want to dial your forward lean back a notch. As a starting point to adjust your forward lean, I always recommend to take a look at your boot first. So any kind of boot should come with a little bit of forward lean. I'm talking about all this in another episode about what makes a good snowboard boot. And basically you want to match up the forward lean of your binding with the forward lean of your boot at the very least. How that looks in this case is that these now bindings, this is how they come out of the box. Forward lean is set to basically neutral. And when I push my ride boots in here, you can actually see that this gap closes super nicely and it's all flush. And basically the forward lean of the boot matches the binding perfectly. Why is it important to match up those two angles? I'm actually talking about this in my boot episode on how to find the right boot size. If you envision that my Highback is actually straight and my boot has more lean than my Highback, what's going to happen when I want to get on my heel edge? First of all, there's no response, there's a gap, right? So there's a delay. But the biggest thing that happens is the boot is simply not designed to flex backwards. So once your calf starts pushing into the top edge of your boot and there's no Highback to hold it, something has to give, and that will be your foot inside the boot. It will basically, an adjustment like this with a gap here will highly likely make your foot move forward and push into the toe box of your boot, giving you the impression of being actually in too small of a boot. So to avoid that kind of mistaken perception, always match up the Highback with the boot's forward lean at the very least. Some manufacturers actually offer bindings that don't have any forward lean, or at least in the neutral setting, don't have any angle on the Highback. Burton's line for a while had all these bindings with Highbacks that they called zero lean Highbacks, and they basically came out of the box straight. So as much as that might be fun for some people who ride a lot of park and want a looser, less responsive kind of turn feel from their board, I personally think, for the reasons I've given earlier, that those bindings or those kinds of adjustments with a straight Highback only work with a boot that is equally as straight. And boots are normally coming with that little bit of lean here, and in most cases to rock the binding without any forward lean is actually not very beneficial. One way to find your own perfect amount of forward lean could be going backwards by basically cranking your high back all the way and then just starting with getting into the binding. The first thing you're going to notice, and you should be careful with that, is that it's quite difficult to get into a binding that has maximum forward lean cranked down. So reason for that is that you basically have to pre-flex your boot. You can see that big gap that I have down here. Up here I'm already touching the high back, so in order for me to get my heel all the way into the heel cup, I actually have to pre-flex my boot and then push into it. And that is a little bit difficult, and you will very highly likely end up not liking your highest amount of forward lean. However, if that is already the first issue, obvious suggestion would be to just decrease by 1 notch here on that little slider and then try that again. And when you found a way where you can get into the binding quite nicely, take the board for a ride, and you're very likely able to find out within 1 or 2 runs by decreasing notch for notch where your personal good balance between comfort, as in avoiding calf bite, and board response is gonna be. Just always make sure your heel is all the way against the heel cup of the binding. I've had a few of my subscribers ask me the same question that I asked myself a few years ago, which is, do I want or need the same amount of forward lean on each binding? Personally, I find in a duck stance, there's no benefit in having more lean on one or the other. It's kind of a symmetrical setup, and it makes sense to keep the Highbacks that way. Please let me know whether you disagree in the comments. As soon as you move into a double positive stance, I personally find that the biomechanics change. And you can see in this photo here that basically my ankle on the back foot is much more flexed than my ankle on the front foot. And to kind of match those movements, what I ended up doing is basically riding with more forward lean on the back foot than on the front foot. And basically my reference is the front foot. So I'm finding the amount that I need and want on the front foot for good heel edge response, and then I just give my back foot 1 notch more than that. Now obviously that is just me, and I personally know some world-class turners and carvers who do either the exact opposite, running more forward lean on the front foot than on the back foot, with the argument being it's the front foot that gets the board on edge. I think that's a good argument. It doesn't work for me, however. And I also know some that don't even have a high back at all on the front foot. Josh Dirksen is one of them, who apparently uses either no high back or a low back. JG Burton Shaper from back in the day, he's running low backs or no backs, however. So yeah, I mean, the jury is out. I think it is a personal preference topic. But there are some biomechanics that go with it. There are some things that make more sense than others in regards to fitting your boot in there and all those things. So to me, it's a thing that you simply need to play with, and ideally do it consciously. Reflect on the things that happen. Don't make choices pushed by any kind of trend, or I've seen this on that rider. Find out for yourself what works best for you. The last thing I want to say is that you shouldn't feel like you need to find the one and only forward lean setup that works for yourself. You might want different amounts for your carving board than you do for your park board. So simply don't be afraid and keep playing with it. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and get the notifications so you are being notified when the next thing is dropping here. We got a lot more ground to cover, and I'm really looking forward to more engagement in the comments. We've been awesome so far. I'm enjoying this. Take care, everybody. See you on the hill. Bye-bye.